Hello, welcome back to I Create For You. I forgot I had the second book, Spooky Yellowstone, Tales of Hauntings, Strange Happenings, and Other Local Lore. And it's retold by Essie Schlosser, illustrated by Paul G. Hoffman. Now it says illustrated, but they're just like little pencil thingies like this. So, um, there's a part one and a part two of this book. The first part is called Ghost Stories, I believe. Yep, and the second part is called Powers of Darkness and Light. Now, there seems to be pretty many stories in here, and we'll start off with Maddie. All right, Maddie, and then they tell you where this is located in Yellowstone at the Nez Perce picnic area. I'd lost track of time as usual. I'd spend the morning roaming the boardwalks of Yellowstone's famous fountain paint pots, taking snapshots of fabulous volcanic features, bubbling mud pots in unique colors, hissing fumaroles with hot steam puffing out of them like dragon's breath, boiling hot pools of a deadly but serene-looking 200-degree Caribbean blue, and gushing geysers spouting water high into the air. It was enough to distract me from the basics of human existence, like my current need, discovered shortly after I turned my car north toward Madison Junction for a ladies' room. I seriously had to go. There was no delicate way of phrasing it. My biological need pressed with some urgency. If I did not find a ladies' room soon, I would have to use a bush by the roadside. Unfortunately, I appeared to be driving through a meadow at the moment. There were some interesting volcanic features steaming off to my left, but no conveniently concealing shrubbery. Then I saw a sign for Fountain Flat Drive, and eureka! What looked like a picnic area, which might have a primitive restroom or a bush. I hung a left, then a quick right, and parked the car with impressive speed. Levitating out of the driver's seat, I hurtled toward a brown building with a restroom sign, my feet barely touching the pavement. I emerged a few minutes later in a much happier frame of mind, scrubbing sanitizer onto my hands as I looked around with renewed interest. The Nez Perce picnic area stood between two bodies of water, a small creek on my right and the Firehole River on my left. This was a nice spot to have a lunch, I decided, and headed to the car for my picnic basket. The sun glittered enticingly upon the Firehole River, so I made my way through the evergreens and sagebrush, choosing a picnic table near the riverbank. I unpacked my lunch upon the weathered gray table while a Clark's nutcracker called sassily from a nearby branch, eyeing the food with interest. "This food is mine, not yours," I informed the bird as I unpacked tuna salad trail mix and a bag of chips and a soda. According to park regulations, tourists are supposed to stay 25 yards away from wildlife. This means you. Ignoring park regulations, the bird launched itself from the branch and perched on a nearby table. "I may have to report you to a ranger," I threatened as I settled down to eat. The nutcracker chirped, its eyes fixed on my food. My conversation with the bird was interrupted when a soft voice behind me said, "Do you mind if I join you?" I jumped about a mile, nearly spilling my soda. I hadn't heard footsteps or seen anyone nearby. Where had this stranger come from? There was no place to hide among the low-growing sagebrush and golden meadow grass. I whirled in my seat to look at the stranger. It was a woman in an old-fashioned long dress with a long coat buttoned over it. She wore a smashing hat that I rather envied, and she looked chilled, rather surprising in this warm sunshine. I wondered if she was a Mennonite or one of the other faiths that require traditional dress for their congregation. "Good afternoon," I said belatedly, returning the woman's smile. "Please join me." I gestured to it at the bench beside me. The woman gracefully took a seat, long dress swishing around her. "My name is Maddie," she said. "I'm Karen," I replied. "Are you staying at the Firehole Hotel?" she asked. I'd never heard of the Firehole Hotel. but I wasn't familiar with all the amenities in Yellowstone. I'd mostly paid attention to the places I could park my little camper. I'm camping up at Madison, I said. Are you staying at the hotel? My husband has a job with the Yellowstone Park Association. They provided us with a place at the hotel, Maddie said. I sighed with envy. It must be wonderful to work here, I said. I love the wild beauty of this place. You can't beat the view. I gestured to the sparkling river flowing through the wide grassy meadow, framed by the pine-covered mountains. The sagebrush added some green to the seared yellow grass, and the rapids burbled soft background music to the birds chirping. Maddie coughed, a deep hacking sound. I beg your pardon, she apologized as she wiped her mouth with a lace handkerchief. Somewhat restored to herself, she continued. We love it here. My little girl Theta loves the animals. One of her first words was bison. How old is Theta? I asked, taking a bite of a sandwich. I offered Maddie some of my trail mix, but she shook her head. Theta turned a year in June, Maddie replied. She doesn't remember her first visit to Yellowstone. We worked here last summer, just after she was born, but went back home for the winter. This year we are staying on at the hotel as winter caretakers. My health isn't good, so I can't travel anymore. I gazed at her in concern. Maddie was very pale and too thin, and her cough had sounded nasty. But her smile was sweet, and she was good company on this warm autumn afternoon. Maddie grinned suddenly at the little Clark's nutcracker, which had hopped closer as we talked, eyes still fixed on my trail mix. She hummed at the bird, who replied with a funny chittering sound. Suddenly the bird flew away, seemingly alarmed by something it heard. Maddie glanced toward the river, then rose and smiled at a man walking up the bank toward us. There's my husband, Ellery. I must go. It was lovely speaking with you, Karen. Maddie slipped from the bench and walked toward her husband. It was nice to meet you, Maddie, I said, watching the strolling man in bemused wonder. Maddie's husband was dressed in a conservative old suit that seemed to match Maddie's old-fashioned dress and coat. Ellery tipped his hat to me, offered Maddie his arm. They walked past me along the river bank. At that moment, a cold gust of wind whipped over the table, sending my napkin flying. I lunged for it and caught it before it fell off the table. When I turned back, the river bank was empty. Maddie and Ellery had vanished as mysteriously as they had arrived. How odd, I thought, and shivered at the sudden silence. My fingers were trembling as I finished my lunch. I rubbed my goose-fleshed arms, feeling cold and a bit spooked. I glanced around, hoping to see the friendly Clark's nutcracker, but the bird too had vanished. I thrust the remainder of my meal into the picnic basket and got up quickly. No longer enjoying the view, it was time to move on. As I turned toward the parking lot, I saw a small fenced-in area behind the restrooms. The wooden posts resembled those I'd seen placed around thermal features that popped up unexpectedly in public parking lots. Speculating on what I might find, a mud pot, a fume roll, I walked over to the fenced-off place, jauntily swinging my picnic basket. What emerged as I walked down the sagebrush slope was a small white grave with a rose carved on the front. I moved around the fence until I could read the writing on the tomb. Maddie S., wife of E.C. Culver, died March 2nd, 1889, aged 30 years. I gasped and dropped the picnic basket, chills encompassing my body. I leaned heavily against the fence, legs trembling so fiercely that they would not hold me upright. Maddie? I gasped. Maddie? I had just had lunch with a ghost. I drew in several ragged breaths, my heart pounding so hard it hurt my chest. Then I grabbed my picnic basket and ran for the car. I didn't care how nice Maddie was. I was getting out of here. By the time I'd reached my little camper at Madison Junction, my heartbeat had slowed down, and I'd grown curious about my supernatural encounter. Over the next several days, I made cautious inquiries about Maddie's grave and learned more about her. Martha Jane Gilbert was a widow living in a hotel in Billings, Montana, when she met Ellery Culver, the new hotel manager. Maddie was struggling to make a new life for herself after her husband's death from tuberculosis. She and Ellery grew close and married in April of 1886. Their daughter Theda was born a year later, and the young parents moved to Yellowstone, where Ellery has secured a job as the master of transportation. The Culver family spent the summer at the Firehole Hotel, which stood on the grounds that now houses the Nez Perce picnic area, and then the couple wintered in Billings. When they returned the next summer, it was clear that Maddie was dying of tuberculosis. She could not travel far in her invalid condition, so the Culvers overwintered in Yellowstone as caretakers of the hotel. Maddie passed away on March 2nd, 1889, just shy of her third wedding anniversary. She was buried in a grave a stone's throw from the Firehole Hotel, where she had lived and worked until her death. After Maddie's death, little Theda went to live with her aunt, but Ellery returned to Yellowstone for many years to be near his beloved wife. The Firehole Hotel burned to the ground in 1891 and was not replaced. Ellery died in 1922 and was buried in California, where he spent his retirement years in an old soldier's home. Over the years, many park visitors reported seeing Ellery's spirit walking the banks of the Firehole River in the company of his beloved wife, Maddie. And now I was among them. Rest in peace, Ellery and Maddie Culver. So I looked it up, and I found a picture of her tombstone. Let's see if you guys can see that. I'm going to zoom you in because I'm going to zoom you in anyway. Okay. This is Maddie's tombstone. It says Maddie S., wife of E.C. Culver, died March 2nd, 1889, aged 30 years. And there's the carved rose. It's a beautiful headstone for back then. And that must have taken lots of time. You can imagine that had to be almost hand carved, because back in the day they didn't have the luxury of machinery to do that for you. Okay, so now I'm going to just, in the spirit of Halloween, I know that Maddie is a very polite, very nice woman, very nice ghost. But in the spirit of the Halloween season, I am going to draw a ghost in her attire, but a little more ghostly. Okay. So, I'm a little bit late tonight getting this up, but just the same, I was able to get a video for you guys. Ooh, I'm having issues, aren't I? Well, that's as good as I'm gonna get, because she's looking crooked. I just cannot get this side. Oh, my goodness. So, I'm just gonna leave it at that for now. I don't know what her hair looked like. I was looking up pictures, and I could not find any pictures of what she looked like at all. They didn't have any photos. So I'm just going to just give her whatever kind of hairdo. It's a good thing I wasn't a hairdresser, right? Look at that mess. Looks like she just woke up. Okay. Give her neck. And then they always have like high collars on these. So that's going to be her collar. Okay. And I'm going to go out with this, because they always had these type of shawl type things that they wore, kind of. So I'm just going to put buttons on that, and then come out here with her hands. What could I have her? I'll just have her arms down at the side. This is her coat. And it's very hard to do this 18th century stuff. Okay. Now, she's can't be that big, I would think. Especially if she said that she was pretty thin and pale looking. These dresses are always like had a big bust, boost, whatever they call that in the back. I can't remember what it's called. I mean, those dresses were really pretty, but I can't imagine ever wearing them. I mean, it's got to be hard to sit down. I'm giving her pockets. I don't know what to do with her hands. Ah, I did a quick fix. Let's see. Just do a little wispy of her dress here because I don't know what my time frame is on this because I want to get to her spookiness. Okay, let's get to her spookiness. She's gonna look like a cartoon. Let me see if you're in frame still. I'll bring you down just a little bit here. Good lordy Lou. Let me get this right. Her eyes were way too big. Sorry, Maddie. I'm not quite sure what her hat looked like. I'm just going to make it a little fancy. She was wearing a hat. So I made her a little spooky, but not too spooky. Can't overdo it, you know. Not a good thing. Sort to freak people out. And that ghostly appearance. And there's scary Maddie. Scary Maddie. Alrighty. Well, thanks so much for stopping by. My drawings aren't all this bad, but spur of the moment, I quick found this book and I just want to continue with some Yellowstone because there's some really interesting stories. And if you like this kind of content, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. Doesn't cost a dime, but it helps my channel immensely. And I'm so close to 100. I think the last time I looked, I had 98. So that kind of excites me. I know there's people out there with thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of subscribers. I'm just happy that I'd have 100. To me, that's a big deal. I don't need all the hype, but I still need help growing my channel. Okay. And And so, I shall see you guys hopefully in the next video. Have a great weekend, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye for now.